Hello and welcome back. Today we're looking at Faust and we're looking at the 4 scenes in which Gretchen's life really falls apart. Today we're having testing, so I've been displaced to the teacher workroom, but that's okay, because that's where all the coffee is. So in the next couple scenes, we're going to examine the developing problems that Gretchen faces as her relationship with Faust continues. The first of these scenes is at the well. The scene is fairly short and simple. Gretchen and one of her friends, Lieschen, are standing by the well fetching water. It's just a place of gossip, an errand-running place, and she bumps into this girl, Lieschen, who is telling her about another girl named Barbara. You see, Barbara has gotten pregnant out of wedlock. And so Lieschen is talking all about her and talking about how she's finally getting what she deserves and how that guy is totally gonna ditch her and her life is ruined. And Gretchen feels pity for this girl, Barbara. After all, Gretchen begins to see echoes of herself in Barbara. Gretchen hopes that maybe the guy will marry her and make everything okay. And Lieschen says, yeah, right, that'll never happen. But even if it does, we'll totally trash her wedding. If she gets him, we'll make it hot for her. The lads will tear off her wreath, and we will scatter chaff at her door, you'll see. So they'll do everything to bring shame on her, even if she receives a legitimate marriage. And after this, Gretchen has an extremely potent speech. After Lieschen walks away, Gretchen is alone, and she has this moment of reflection. It's a moment of epiphany. How readily I used to blame some poor young soul that came to shame, never found sharp enough words like pins to stick into other people's sins. Black as it seemed, I tarred it to boot, and still never black enough to suit, would cross myself, exclaim and preen, now I myself am bared to sin. Yet all of it that drove me here, God was so innocent, was so dear. She thinks back on her past when she used to be so pure and so good, and she used to look at other people who had made mistakes and say, I can't believe you made that mistake. And suddenly she's found herself in the exact same situation. When you're on the good side of things and you've never done anything wrong, and you look over there at the people who are making mistakes and getting into bad situations and you say, I can't believe you would choose to do something like that. I can't believe that you would just walk in and do that awful thing. You totally deserve what you're getting. It's really easy to say that without putting yourself in their situation. But now Gretchen is suddenly waking up and realizing she's in the same situation. And she didn't just wake up one morning and say, I'm gonna go sin. I'm gonna go be a bad person. That's not how it works. You don't just go along in the good, straight and narrow path and suddenly one day wake up and be like, I think I'll be a bad person today. No, instead, you sort of slip into it. You find yourself into it. And what actually brought her here? What got her into this situation? Yet all of it that drove me here. God was so innocent, was so dear. It felt so right. It felt so pure. It felt so good. But it still got her in this situation. We can see the effect of Faust's conversations about feelings. Whatever you feel deeply and sincerely is true. Well, if you follow that philosophy, you're going to wind up feeling your way into a lot of trouble. And Gretchen is just beginning to realize that. In the next scene, she's in it even more. The scene by the city wall depicts Gretchen standing by a statue of the Virgin Mary and crying out. But it's also interesting because the stage directions indicate that this isn't just any statue of Mary. This is particularly the sorrowing mother of Christ. This is Mary who is grieving over Christ. Incline, thou rich in grief, O shine thy grace upon my wretchedness. Pierced to the heart with thousandfold dart, thou gazest up at thy dead son's face. To him in the highest thou gazest, sighest, for thine and thy son's distress. Who gauges how rages pain in my marrow and bone, my poor heart's retching, quaking, beseeching, thou knowest thou alone. Wherever I go, woe, woe, oh woe, rends my bosom apart. Scarce left alone, I moan, 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 and weep to break my heart. At morn I plucked thee flowers, my bitter tears did rain, bedewed the shards with showers outside my window pane. When in my room at dawning, the sun its brightness shed, I sat in wakeful mourning, already up in bed. Mercy, save me from shame and death. Incline, thou rich in grief, O shine thy grace upon my wretchedness. We hear the intensity of Gretchen's grief. She is in deep trouble. And of course, Goethe doesn't bother to tell us why, but we can infer, if we have a little bit of knowledge on the subject, about what's wrong with her. She's pregnant. She's got a baby coming, and Faust hasn't married her. What's going to happen to her now? She's going to bring shame upon herself and upon her family, and she'll be thrown out potentially, and cursed and by all around her. Gretchen is filling a particular role in Romantic and Victorian literature, the role of the fallen woman, the woman who slips up and falls and therefore becomes an outcast to society. We see it in all kinds of works of Romanticism. There's The Scarlet Letter with Hester. In Les Miserables, Fantine, we'll see it in stories and poetry. It shows up again and again and again. And the reason why it's so interesting to the Romantics is that it is a crime of passion. It's a crime that comes from loving. You fall in love, you do what feels so right, and out of that springs sin and disaster and destruction. It's very tragic. And it was a sincere problem in this day. Gretchen points out how her grief is unending, how she can't sleep or do anything except for sit here and grieve and ache. And in the end, she's begging Mary for mercy. Save me from shame and death. Why does Gretchen go to Mary, the sorrowing mother of Christ? Mary is a good type figure for unwed mothers because she was an unwed mother. And also, she had a whole lot to grieve. She had to bear the possibility of shame and rejection because she bore the Christ child. She also had to bear the grief of watching him suffer and die, which caused her such suffering. Therefore, she's the kind of mother who understands, who Gretchen can turn to and pray to. But it's also interesting to note that in all of this grief, where is Faust? Is Faust fretting with her and worrying about this situation with her? No. In fact, it doesn't even seem... He's not even here. In fact, it doesn't even seem like he really realizes Gretchen is pregnant. Will he ever even acknowledge his own child? We'll see. The next scene is even worse. Night, street in front of Gretchen's door. This scene opens with Gretchen's brother. It's the first we've seen of him. Remember, he was a soldier, and so he's probably been off warring a lot, and he's finally back in town, and here he is angry. He's found out that somebody's knocked up his sister and he is not happy about it. But listen to the way he describes it. When I would sit at a drinking bout where many a lad would brag and shout, commending the flower of maidenhood to my face as loudly as they could, bloating their praise with a flowing cup, I'd sit there with my head propped up, secure and snugly as you please, let all the bombast roll at ease. I'd chuckle, pass my beard through my hand, reach for my well-filled mug and say, all this is fair enough in its way, but is there one in all the land who with my Gretel can compare? One that can hold a candle to her? Hear, hear, clink, clank, rang cup to cup, and some would shout with flashing eyes, he's right, she is the maiden's prize. That shut the noisy champions up. And now, I feel like tearing my hair, running up walls from sheer despair, with needling speeches, sly mockery. Any scoundrel may wipe his mouth on me, and I sit like a sponger long in debt, whom any chance remark can sweat. Valentine is really angry at the loss of his sister's honor, but it doesn't seem so much like he's concerned for her future, or he's worried about what's going to happen to her, or anything like that. He's really angry because now he has nothing to brag about. His pure little sister has ruined herself and ruined his name too. Now anyone can laugh at him for having a sister like that. What a jerk! But he's waiting outside her window to see if he can see who this guy is who messed with his sister. Faust and Mephistopheles walk along down the road and they're chatting about Walpurgis Night, which we'll see in the next episode. Walpurgis Night is a witch holiday in which gold shines in the night, and so you're able to find it easily, and Faust wants to find a present for Gretchen, but Mephistopheles is all excited about the festivities. But they walk up to Gretchen's window, and Mephistopheles begins to play a zither. He's going to sing a song to get them in the mood, and knowing Mephistopheles, it's not the right kind of song for the situation. He sings, why do you wait, sweet Kate, at lover's gate, at early light of day? Do not begin, he'll let you in, a maiden not away. Take heed, take flight, once out of sight, it is good night. Good night, poor piteous thing. For your own sake, have with a rake no give and take, but with a wedding ring. So Mephistopheles sings a song, which is a moral song, saying, make sure you don't sleep with a guy until he marries you. Obviously, this song is very inappropriate given the situation. Gretchen is already in trouble. She's already slept with Faust. She's already pregnant. And here's Mephistopheles reminding her of the dangers of doing everything she's already done. He's rubbing it in. But also, we might note that this song is... But also we should note that this song comes partially from Hamlet. It's a song that Ophelia sings when she's crazy, and she's another figure that somewhat represents the fallen woman. She's Hamlet's girlfriend, and in the midst of all of Hamlet's problems, he wound up killing her father on accident and ditching her. She goes crazy and begins to sing this song regretting the way she gave herself to him. So Mephistopheles is playing up that sense of regret. Also, there's a bit of foreshadowing. Valentine jumps up and smashes the zither, and then wants to fight. And so Mephistopheles sort of pushes Faust to the front, and Faust and Valentine begin to fight, and Mephistopheles cheats. Valentine's arm freezes, and Faust drives home his sword and kills Valentine. And so we have this Romeo and Juliet-esque scene where the lover kills the family member of the girl he loves and then has to run away because of it. Very much like Romeo killing Tybalt and then having to flee. Mephistopheles points out that he has no control over the murder courts because they do everything in the name of God, so he can't use his magic against that because the name of God trumps him. And so they have to run away. And so Faust and Mephistopheles run away, leaving Gretchen's brother lying there dying on the ground. All the town runs out to see what happened. They heard the noise, the scuffling, and there's Gretchen. She sees her brother lying there dying, and as Valentine lies there dying, he calls them all around and he says, "Gretchen, you're a slut. Your boyfriend just killed me." So the whole town can hear it. Gretchen is horrified. Here she is already guilt-ridden for all of this, and now her brother, with his dying words, proclaims her guilt to the entire town. And he goes on to say, well, you may have slept with one now, but in the future you'll sleep with the whole town, won't you? And you're gonna die in misery. He ends, "And if God at last your sin forgive, on earth be cursed as long as you live." Marta tries to calm him down, but he just chews her out for being a panderer and being a go-between for his sister and her boyfriend. Gretchen weeps over him, saying, "My brother, brother, what agony!" And Valentine closes, saying, "I tell you, don't waste tears on me. When you renounced your honor first, then was my heart most sorely pierced. I passed through death's brief slumber span to God, a soldier, and an honest man. At least my own reputation is intact, even if you've shamed our name." What a jerk! And he dies, leaving Gretchen all sad and alone. The last scene we're going to look at today is the cathedral scene. Cathedral, mass, organ, and singing. And in this scene, we have three voices. We have Gretchen, who is sitting in the cathedral in the funeral service. We have the chorus, who is singing the Requiem for the Dead. And we have an evil spirit. The evil spirit seems to be sort of lurking over Gretchen's shoulder and speaking to her. And what is this evil spirit? Well, Goethe does like to throw in all kinds of weird ghosts and goblins and ghouly-goos, but this one appears to really serve the role of Gretchen's conscience. It's reminding her of all the things she feels guilty for as she's sitting in this service. The evil spirit says, "How changed, Gretchen, you feel, since full of innocence you would approach this altar, from the well-thumbed booklet prattling prayers, half childish games, half God in your heart. Gretchen, where now your mind? Within your heart, what misdeed? Do you pray for your mother's soul through you sent in her sleep to long, long agony? Whose blood upon your threshold, and here beneath your heart, is it not swelling astir already, alarming you itself with its foreboding presence?" All the things Gretchen has to feel guilty for. She has the child that is growing inside of her that she feels shame over. She has her brother's death, his blood on her threshold. She has... Wait a second, her mother's dead? When did that happen? Do you pray for your mother's soul through you sent in her sleep to long, long agony? Her mother died from the sleeping potion? So, Gretchen, in drugging her mother with that drug that Faust gave her a bit too much, and she OD'd on sleeping potion. And she'll never wake again. In short, Faust got her pregnant, killed her whole family, and ran away. And she feels guilty for all of it. And of course she can't shake this guilt or these thoughts, but not helping at all. The Requiem for the Dead in the background is chanting in Latin, but it's saying things like, "Day of wrath, that day will dissolve the world in cinders." And, "Thus when the judge holds court, whatever is hidden will appear, nothing will remain unavenged." Basically laying on the guilt extra heavy. All who sinned will be destroyed. And Gretchen's feeling it and feeling it. The weight is getting heavier and heavier. The evil spirit reminds her of her innocence, but even calls her out on her innocence. After all, wasn't it just a game to her? Little prattling prayers, childish games in your heart? And now we see the true Gretchen, the one who's willing to let her whole family die so she can have a bit of fun. Gretchen is completely overcome by the weight of all of this and faints at the end of the scene. Poor Gretchen. She's in a horrible situation. What's going to happen to her? We'll have to wait a while to find out, because the next scene jumps to what Faust is doing. As he's run away from her, he's not taking all of this quite so much to heart. In fact, he's at a crazy witch party. We'll see that next time as we look at Walpurgis Night and Walpurgis Night's Dream. The Disney song for this particular episode is Reflections. Look at me. I used to pass for a perfect bride or a perfect daughter. Then he came and he opened up my heart. Now I see through what Faust has taught me of myself. I will break my family's heart. Thanks for watching! You can click up here to watch the previous episode, or click down here to watch the next episode, or you can click here to subscribe. And I will see you next time when we look at Walpurgis Night, which is probably the craziest scene in this whole play. It's absolutely nuts. See ya.